Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah sallallahu. My dear sister, what if I told you that one decision you make today could either protect your akhirah or slowly distance you from it? What if the habits you think are harmless are actually shaping your future in ways you don't yet realize? And what if by the time you understand it, it might feel too late? Don't scroll away from this message, because this could be the reminder your heart has been waiting for. Allah has honored women in Islam with dignity, purpose and responsibility. But in a world full of distractions, expectations and pressure, it's easy to lose sight of that identity. This message is not about restriction. It's about protection. It's not about limitation. It's about elevation. It's about elevation. Because a woman who understands her value in the sight of Allah can never be truly lost. One of the greatest struggles many women face today is not a lack of ability or opportunity, but a lack of recognizing their true worth. In a world that constantly tells you how you should look, act and be accepted, it becomes easy to measure your value based on NASA, their opinions, their approval and their attention. Social media, trends and comparisons create an invisible pressure that makes you feel like you are never enough unless you meet certain standards. This constant need for validation can slowly drain your confidence and make you question your identity, even though your worth was already defined by Allah long before anyone else had a say. When your self-worth is tied to people, it becomes unstable. One compliment can lift you up and one negative comment can bring you down. This emotional dependence can lead to anxiety, insecurity, and a constant state of dissatisfaction. You may find yourself comparing your life, your appearance, or your achievements to others, forgetting that everyone has a different journey written by Allah. Over time, this comparison steals your peace and distracts you from focusing on what truly matters, your relationship with your Creator and your purpose in this life. Islam teaches you something far more powerful and liberating. Your value does not come from how many people notice you, praise you, or approve of you. Your value comes from the fact that Allah created you with intention, honored you with Iman, and gave you a role that no one else can fulfill in the same way. When you begin to internalize this, your perspective shifts. You no longer chase validation from people because you are already content knowing that your worth is sabbat, firm with Allah. A simple but effective step you can take today is to start reminding yourself of this truth daily. Speak to yourself with words of Iman, not doubt. Replace thoughts like I am not enough with Allah created me for a purpose. Limit the time you spend comparing yourself to others, especially in environments that trigger insecurity. Instead, focus on your own growth, your ibadah, and your personal journey toward Allah. Build the habit of gratitude for who you are and what you have been given. When you appreciate your blessings, you naturally shift away from comparison. Surround yourself with people and content that uplift your Iman rather than weaken it. Over time, this consistency strengthens your inner confidence and brings a sense of peace that is not dependent on anyone else's opinion. When you truly understand your worth through the lens of your Creator, you free yourself from the need for constant approval and you begin to walk through life with quiet confidence, knowing that you are valued, honored, and seen by Allah in every moment. In today's world, the concept of beauty has been redefined in a way that constantly pressures women to be seen, admired, and validated through appearance. Everywhere you look, on social media, in advertisements, even in everyday interactions, there is a subtle message that the more attention you attract, the more valuable you are. Over time, this normalizes behavior that slowly pulls a woman away from her natural sense of haya, making immodesty seem acceptable or even necessary to fit in. What begins as a small compromise can gradually reshape how you see yourself, until you start measuring your worth by how others perceive you rather than how Allah self-objected values you. The impact of this shift is deeper than it appears. When modesty is weakened, self-respect often follows. You may begin to seek external validation more frequently, and your confidence becomes tied to reactions from others. This can lead to a cycle where you feel the need to present yourself in a certain way just to maintain attention, even if it conflicts with your inner values. Spiritually, it creates a distance between you and Allah, because modesty is not just about clothing, it is a reflection of your relationship with Him, your awareness that He sees you at all times, and your desire to please Him above anyone else. Islam does not ask you to hide your beauty. It teaches you to protect it. True beauty in Islam is not about how much you reveal, but how much you preserve with dignity and intention. Modesty is not a restriction placed upon you. It is a shield that protects your honor, your qalb, and your identity. When you understand it this way, choosing modesty becomes empowering rather than limiting. It allows you to define yourself based on your faith, your character, and your connection with Allah, rather than the expectations of society. A practical step you can take today is to reflect honestly on your choices, both in how you dress and how you present yourself online. Ask yourself whether your actions align with the values you want to carry as a Muslim. Small changes can make a big difference. Adjusting your clothing, being mindful of what you share, and setting boundaries in how you seek attention are all steps that bring you closer to living with purpose and dignity. Make it a habit to choose modesty even when it feels difficult or when others may not understand. Strength comes from staying true to what pleases Allah, not from following what is popular. Surround yourself with influences that encourage higher and remind you of your worth beyond appearance. When you guard your modesty sincerely for the sake of Allah, you not only protect your outer self, but you also preserve the purity and strength of your inner self, allowing you to live with confidence, dignity, and a deep sense of peace that comes from knowing you are pleasing your Creator. The heart is one of the most delicate and valuable parts of who you are, yet it is often the most unguarded. In a world that encourages constant connection, messaging, and emotional openness, it becomes easy to form attachments quickly without considering the long-term impact. Many women find themselves emotionally invested in people who are never meant to stay in their lives, and what starts as something small and harmless can slowly turn into deep attachment. This attachment, when not guided by the boundaries set by Islam, can lead to confusion, distraction, and eventually pain that leaves lasting athra on the heart. The problem is not that you care or feel apply, because that is part of your nature and a strength when used correctly. The issue is when those emotions are given to the wrong people or in the wrong way. When the heart becomes attached to someone outside of halal boundaries, it begins to depend on them to happiness, attention, and validation. This can take your focus away from your purpose, your growth, and most importantly, your relationship with Allah Salawatcha. Over time, you may find your mood, your peace, and even your ibadah affected by how that person treats you or responds to you, creating an emotional imbalance that is difficult to manage. The impact of this is not always immediate, which is why it can be so dangerous. At first, it may feel comforting or exciting, but when things change, as they often do, it can lead to heartbreak, regret, and a sense of loss that is hard to explain. This emotional pain can leave you feeling drained, distracted, and disconnected from your spiritual path. It can also make it harder to trust again or to approach future relationships in a healthy, balanced way. Islam teaches you to protect your heart before it becomes vulnerable in the wrong place. This does not mean closing yourself off from people, but it means setting clear boundaries that honor your values and your future. A practical step you can take today is to evaluate your current connections. Ask yourself honestly if there is anyone in your life who is pulling you away from Allah or causing you emotional instability. If so, begin to create distance, even if it feels difficult at first. Make it a habit to guard your interactions, limit unnecessary communication, and remind yourself that not every connection is meant to continue. Focus on building relationships that are healthy, respectful, and aligned with what is pleasing to Allah. Surround yourself with people who uplift your Iman and encourage your growth rather and distract you from it. When you protect your heart with sincerity and awareness, you preserve your peace, your dignity, and your emotional strength, allowing your love and care to be directed in ways that are pure, meaningful, and ultimately blessed by Allah. So one of the most common traps people fall into is the belief that change can always be delayed. You might tell yourself, I'll start wearing it properly later, I'll fix my habits when I'm older, or I'll get closer to Allah when life settles down. It sounds harmless, even comforting, because it removes the pressure to act now. But the reality is that this mindset is one of the most dangerous deceptions. Time does not wait, and the longer something is delayed, the harder it becomes to change. What feels like a small postponement today can turn into years of distance from Allah without even realizing it. The problem with delaying your return to Allah is that habits do not stay the same, they grow stronger. Every time you repeat an action, it becomes easier to continue and harder to stop. What once felt uncomfortable can become normal, and what once felt wrong may no longer affect your heart in the same way. This is how the qalb slowly becomes less sensitive. It is not a sudden change, but a gradual shift where the urgency to improve fades and the desire to stay as you are increases. Over time, this can create a barrier between you and your spiritual goals, making it feel overwhelming to even begin the process of change. The impact of this delay goes beyond the present moment. It affects your long-term relationship with Allah, your consistency in ibadah, and your overall sense of purpose. You may start to feel stuck, knowing that you want to change but unsure where to begin. This feeling of being not ready yet can become a cycle that keeps you from taking any action at all. And the truth is, there will never be a perfect moment to change. Life will always have distractions, responsibilities, and challenges. The solution is to break this cycle by starting immediately, even if the step is small. You do not need to transform everything overnight. Begin with one change that you know will bring you closer to Allah. It could be improving your salah, adjusting your clothing, or letting go of something that you know is not pleasing to Him. The key is to take that first step without waiting for ideal conditions. A practical habit to build is daily self-reflection. At the end of each day, ask yourself what you did to move closer to Allah, even in a small way. This keeps you aware and accountable. Surround yourself with reminders that encourage growth and make it easier to stay consistent. When you choose to act now instead of later, you break the illusion of delay and open the door to real change, allowing your journey back to Allah with sincerity, courage, and a heart that refuses to wait any longer. One of the most powerful influences on your thoughts, choices, and identity is the environment you surround yourself with, even if you do not always realize it. The people you spend time with, the content you consume, and the voices you listen to on a daily basis all shape how you see yourself and the world around you. In today's digital age, this influence has become even stronger because you are constantly exposed to ideas, lifestyles, and values through your phone. Without careful attention, you may slowly absorb messages that do not align with your faith, and over time, they begin to feel normal. The problem is that influence works quietly. You may not notice the change happening, but gradually your mindset begins to shift. What once felt uncomfortable may start to feel ill-acceptable, and what once felt important, like your connection with Allah may slowly lose its priority. If the people around you or the content you follow do not remind you of Allah, they can unintentionally pull you away from Him. This does not always happen in obvious ways. Sometimes it is subtle, through comparison, distraction, or a constant focus on dunya that leaves little space for reflection and growth. The impact of this is significant in both your daily life and your long-term direction. Your habits begin to mirror what you see and hear. Your goals may shift toward pleasing others rather than pleasing Allah. Even your sense of identity can become confused as you try to balance between what your faith teaches and what your environment promotes. Over time, this can weaken your Iman and make it harder to stay consistent in your ibadah because your surroundings are not supporting your efforts. The solution is to become intentional about what you allow into your life. This does not mean isolating yourself from the world, but it means choosing your influences wisely. Start by evaluating who and what has the strongest impact on you. Are your friends encouraging you toward al-khair, or are they distracting you from it? Is the content you consume uplifting your Iman or feeding comparison and dissatisfaction? Being honest with yourself is the first step toward change. A practical action you can take today is to make small adjustments. Unfollow accounts that make you feel insecure or pull you away from your values. Replace them with reminders, beneficial knowledge, and voices that strengthen your connection with Allah. Spend more time with people who inspire you to grow and who remind you of your purpose. When you consistently choose an environment that nurtures your Iman, you make it easier for yourself to stay on the right path, allowing your heart, your menk, and your actions to align with what pleases Allah and supports a life of clarity, strength, and true purpose. One of the greatest deceptions of this Dunya is the idea that happiness is found in the moment, in whatever feels good right now, without thinking about what comes after. You are constantly surrounded by messages that encourage you to enjoy, to follow your desires, and to prioritize temporary feelings over long-term purpose. While there is nothing wrong with seeking happiness, the problem arises when that happiness becomes disconnected from your akhirah. When decisions are made only based on what feels right in the moment, it becomes easy to overlook the consequences that may affect your relationship with Allah and your eternal destination. This mindset can slowly shift your priorities without you even noticing. You may begin to choose convenience over obedience, attention over modesty, or tension over modesty, or tension over modesty, or temporary comfort over long-term reward. At first, these choices may seem small and harmless, but over time, they shape your habits, your character, and your direction in life. The danger is not always immediate. It builds gradually, leading to a sense of emptiness, even when you are surrounded by things that should make you feel fulfilled. This is because the soul was not created to be satisfied by temporary pleasures alone. It was created to seek closeness to Allah. When your focus remains only on the present moment, you risk losing sight of what truly matters. The akhirah becomes distant in your thoughts, and decisions are no longer guided by what will benefit you in the long term. This can affect your consistency in ibadah, your willingness to sacrifice for the sake of Allah, and your ability to stay firm when faced with challenges or temptations. Without a clear vision of Jannah, it becomes much harder to resist what is easy but not beneficial. The solution is to train yourself to think beyond the moment. Before making a decision, pause and ask yourself a simple but powerful question: will this bring me closer to Jannah or further away? This question creates awareness and helps you realign your intentions with your ultimate goal. It does not mean you must deny yourself all enjoyment, but it means you choose wisely and with purpose. A practical habit to build is to remind yourself daily of the akhirah. Whether through reading Qur'an, reflecting on its meanings, or simply taking a few moments to think about your final destination, this awareness strengthens your ability to make better choices. Surround yourself with reminders that keep your focus on what is eternal rather than temporary. When you begin to live with the akhirah in mind, your decisions become more meaningful, your actions more intentional, and your heart more at peace. Because you are no longer chasing what fades, but striving for what lasts forever with Allah. My dear sister, you are not ordinary. You were chosen to carry in dignity and strength. Don't let the dunya distract you from who you truly are. Don't wait until regret becomes your teacher. Choose Allah before it feels too late. Remember, my beloved sister, every step you take towards Allah, He comes closer to you. So don't delay, don't doubt, just begin, because wallah, a sincere heart will never be turned away.